Hi guys, this is Atco. I've sent out a couple of videos of my game room, and most of it is collections that I have of my music and things from the 60s. But I do have another collection of my vintage computers. I'd like to show it to you. I'd like you to give a little tour and see what I have, and maybe go through a few videos of that go through a little more details of my computers. So give it a shot if you like. Follow me, we'll take a little tour, and I hope you enjoy it. So just come with me. And this is where I keep my vintage computers. Do a quick scan. And what I plan to do is going through a little bit more detail for each of the units that I have, or at least the main units. And we're going to start today with the Apple II. What I'm going to try to do is bring my my computers out there in the order of the year, the best I can. So the oldest one I have is the Apple II. You know, the Apple II came out in 1977, and that was the first successful mass production of the personal computers. You know, the design of the Apple was done by Steve Wozniak, and he came out. He was a computer hobbyist, and he was putting pieces of bigger computers and trying to make a small one, putting all the one parts together into one box. And he came out with his first one and called it the Apple I, and that was in 1975. It was a kit that he sold to other hobbyists, and he made 20 of them and sold them very quickly. So a friend of his named Steve Jobs thought that hey, there's a business there for this, and they got together and got marketing to create this thing. And Wozniak, he designed it so a lot better, nice of a box that it could be bought not as a kit but ready to go. So that's the Apple II, and that's the first unit that came out that they could sell. It obviously it was very successful. It's funny, the CPU was only a 1 megahertz clock, and the base system had 4K of memory, but it could update up to 48K. What I've got here, what you're showing, is actually a next version that came out in 1979. This is the Apple II Plus. It's still the same architecture mostly, but it would come with the base system of 48K memory and could be updated to 64K. By the time he was getting to the Apple II Plus, you could get he designed a diskette for it, and that was a very, very popular machine. Most people know that when they hear the name Atari, you think of the Atari games. And of course they were extremely popular with their 2600 model, which was also for the game programs for Mac, for Pac-Man and Frogger and all those. But they also made one of the earlier computers for home use, and in 1979 they came out with the model 800. And I'll tell you what, it was a really good computer for its time. It had just a 8K memory in base system. I think you could update to 48. But you just got the keyboard, and that was pretty much it for $1,000. And if you wanted a cassette and a disk drive, the prices went up higher. So you could easily get to $2,000 of this thing quickly, and that was in 1979. So it was pretty expensive. I remember I wanted one of these really bad, but it was just too expensive. But it was a really well built machine. And they also had cartridges in there where you could play all the old games that you could use off of their game systems. Now, to try to bring the price down a little bit, they made a smaller version of the 800 that they called the 400. And move up to that. And the 400, a lot cheaper, and was built mainly to be used for the cassettes, where the cassettes weren't cheap either there, but the diskettes were, $500–600 a piece. So you could get the 400 cheaper and get the cassette probably a couple $100, and they did a lot of things to make the manufacturer cheaper. One thing being they used these membrane keyboards, which are if you've ever used those before, they're a real pain to use, but they are cheaper to make, and you could play the games that you wanted as well. It had just one slot for the cartridges, but you could play all those games that you had off of your video games. So it actually was sold very well. I think they sold 4 of these for every one of the 800, and it was a very popular machine at the time, but it was rather on the expensive side. Now also next, in 1979, maybe some of the most popular computers for business now were the Radio Shack, the Tandies. And this TRS-80 was a very, very popular machine for businesses. This came out in 1979, and it used a Z80 CPU and 64K, and that was 64K was actually a lot at that time. It was an expensive machine, but one of the things that made this really popular was the fact that it had an 8-inch floppy drive built into it. And the 8-inch floppy, what made this really well done was that when all these other companies were starting to come out and having diskettes, all the formats that they were using, they were all different. You could have you couldn't get your data from one program to another because the formats would not work. Even from model to model of particular manufacturers, they may not work. The 8-inch floppy drive was standardized, and it was the only time at that time that that you could. So for businesses, they liked the 8-inch drives because you could copy your data. And of course, in 1978 or 79, a 8-inch did have a lot more space than the other ones do. Okay, the Sinclair 1000. Sinclair was a company out of, I believe it's England. It was definitely from Europe. And this may have been the first mass production of a kit where you could buy your computer very cheaply. This came out right around 1980, and I think you could buy one for $99 as a kit, or $150 with it's already built. These were made as Sinclair, and I think it came with like 2K of memory, and you couldn't hardly do anything with this. You could just play a little bit with BASIC to get some starting use of computers. Had a terrible membrane keyboard, but they sold a lot of these, and Timex thought, hey, they wanted to get into it. Everybody was getting into this computer business because it was just blowing away so fast, and everybody wanted to get in, and Timex decided to get into this business too. So they licensed the machine from Sinclair, and they started selling theirs for $99 all built together. So they had the Timex Sinclair. Now they weren't ready to market this Timex until about 1982, but it's the same product. So it's you could get a little cassette with it. You could put more memory in it, but wasn't much of a program or a computer. But it was some of the first ones that you could get and start playing. Okay, the Commodore Vic20. This came out in 1981. Now this may have been the first really popular home computer that was at a very reasonable price. The Commodore Vic20, I think it only came with 16K of memory, but it had a nice keyboard, and it sold for $300, and at that time that was really reasonable, where everything else is $1,000 or more. This thing came out, and you could do a lot with it. You could put it on your TV, you could get color, and they sold tons of programs to use it. This really is what got a regular home use people starting to get into computers. Okay, this is the Texas Instruments 99A. This was probably about the most fastest computer you could buy in 1981 for the home use. It was a very well done machine. It sold a lot of them. It was a little on the expensive side compared to like a Commodore, but you got a lot more out of it. They were marketed by Bill Cosby, and they did real well with these. The problem with the Texas Instruments was that they had all their software was done by Texas Instruments. So where like the Commodores, you could OEM a lot of software, and people would buy the programs for them. Everything had to go through Texas Instruments, and they made good programs, but they were behind all the time to have software that people wanted to have, and it affected their sales. Also, since everything was being done by Texas Instruments, it was expensive, and as prices started coming down, they were having trouble to compete, and eventually got to the point where they were selling them cheaper than they could buy them, and eventually they had to stop production. But it was actually a good machine for 1981.